March 6, 1944, 23,000 feet above Nazi Germany. A B-17 Flying Fortress, codenamed Hell's Fury, penetrated deep into hostile airspace. In the cramped tailgun turret, Staff Sergeant Michael "Mad Mike" Donovan fixed his gaze on 12 Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters forming up for an attack. Standard protocol dictated, retreat to your defensive position and engage fire. His training emphasized, conserve ammunition. Basic survival instinct screamed, stay alive. But Donovan had a different plan entirely. Over the next 4 minutes, 12 German fighters plummeted from the sky. Not a single American crew member was injured. And by the end of the mission, every bomber gunner in the 8th Air Force had adopted a new battle cry: aggression. This is the tale of how one-tail gunners' seemingly suicidal tactics rewrote the rules of aerial combat, how desperation morphed into doctrine, and how the most perilous position on a B-17 became the deadliest weapon in the skies. Michael Donovan grew up in South Boston, where survival meant striking first and striking hard. His father labored on the docks, and his older brother was a Golden Gloves boxer. Mike learned early that waiting made you a target. Action kept you breathing. By the age of 17, he'd been in 32 street fights, winning 128 and losing just 4. He always said he'd started too late. When the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, Donovan enlisted in the Army Air Forces immediately. Military officials wanted him for ground crew, but he insisted on gunnery school. Instructors warned he was too aggressive, too reckless, too willing to expose himself to enemy fire. Donovan's response would become legendary among his classmates. Dead gunners don't shoot back, live ones do. He graduated 3rd in his class, not for pinpoint accuracy, but for sheer speed. Donovan could lock onto targets faster than any other trainee. His secret was simple. He didn't wait for enemy fighters to enter his firing zone. He hunted them down before they got close enough to strike. In March 1944, Donovan was transferred to the 391st Bombardment Group stationed in Framlingham, England. The B-17 he was assigned to, Hell's Fury, already had a fearsome reputation. 3 missions, 2 near-catastrophic run-ins with German fighters. The previous tail gunner, Sergeant Eddie Morrison, had survived but begged for a transfer. He told the crew chief, "That position's cursed. The next guy who sits there will die." Donovan volunteered on the spot. Captain James Whitmore, the pilot, interviewed him personally. "You know the statistics?" Whitmore asked. "The tail gunner position has the highest casualty rate. 38% never finish their tour?" Donovan shrugged. "Then I've got a 62% chance. I'll take those odds." "Why?" Whitmore pressed. "Because I don't wait for them to shoot me. I shoot first." Whitmore studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "You're insane. You'll fit right in." Donovan's first mission was on March 2, 1944, targeting a ball-bearing factory in Schweinfurt. He shot down 1 Bf-109 and damaged 2 others. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't his kills. It was his unorthodox method. Standard tail gunner tactics were purely defensive. Wait for fighters to commit to an attack run. Open fire only when they entered effective range. Conserve ammunition and protect the aircraft at all costs. Donovan did the exact opposite. He fired bursts at fighters still organizing their formation, forcing them to break ranks early. He wasted ammunition on targets at extreme range. His logic was unassailable. 1 burst at 800 yards uses 20 rounds. 1 fighter breaking off its attack saves 10,000 pounds of bomber and 9 lives. The math checks out. His second mission on March 4th targeted another factory. This time, Donovan experimented. When Bf-109s began their attack run from the 6 o'clock high position, directly behind and above, he ignored the lead fighter. Instead, he targeted the wingman, the one not yet expecting return fire, the one flying a predictable path to maintain formation. The wingman exploded in midair. The lead fighter, suddenly alone, broke off immediately, and the entire attack collapsed. After landing, Crew Chief Sergeant Frank Murphy confronted him about his ammunition use. "You fired 1,600 rounds, Murphy said. "Our standard load is 2,000. You used 80% on 1 mission." Donovan shot back, "And we didn't get hit. I'd make that trade every single day." But Donovan wasn't satisfied. He disrupted attacks and broken formations, but he hadn't maximized his effectiveness. That night in the barracks, he pored over German fighter tactics, how they approached, where they positioned themselves, what they expected from American gunners. German fighters attacked in coordinated waves, 4 to 6 aircraft in echelon formation, approaching from the stern quarter high. The lead fighter drew defensive fire, while the wingman exploited the gunner's focus on the primary threat. The standard American response was to track the lead threat, engage only when a hit was certain, and conserve ammo for multiple attacks. Donovan saw the fatal flaw. American gunners reacted, while Germans dictated the terms of engagement. The initiative belonged to the attacker. Every defensive doctrine assumed the enemy controlled the timing. But what if he reversed that? What if he attacked first? What if he forced the enemy to react to him? March 6, 1944, pre-mission briefing, the target, an aircraft factory in Augsburg. Intelligence warned of 800 B-17s facing 2,500 German fighters. Heavy losses were inevitable. Captain Whitmore gathered his crew. "This one's going to be brutal," he said. "Stay sharp, stay alive." Donovan raised his hand. "Permission to try something different, sir." "Like what?" Whitmore asked. "Aggressive fire," Donovan replied. "I want to engage fighters before they commit to their attack runs. Force them to defend themselves before they can attack us." Whitmore frowned. "That burns through ammunition. You'll be dry before the real fight starts." "Or I'll prevent the real fight from happening," Donovan countered. "Sir, we've been playing defense for 2 years. How's that working? A 38% tail gunner casualty rate. Maybe it's time we stopped waiting to get shot." The pilot hesitated, then nodded. "You've got one mission to prove it. If we get torn apart, you're off the gun. Deal." They took off at 0647 hours, assembled formation over East Anglia, climbed to altitude, crossed the English Channel, and entered German airspace at 8:24. The routine felt almost mechanical until the call came at 9:19. "Fighters at 6 o'clock high, 12 bandits." Donovan swiveled his twin 50 caliber machine guns. 12 BF-109s, 2,000 yards out, forming up for a coordinated attack. The standard response, wait for them to commit, then engage the lead fighter. Donovan did neither. He opened fire immediately at 2,000 yards, maximum range, low probability of hits. Tracers arced through the empty sky, most missing by hundreds of feet. But the effect was instantaneous. The German formation scattered. The lead fighter veered right. Wingmen hesitated. The attack collapsed before it even began. "Donovan, cease fire!" Whitmore's voice crackled over the intercom. "You're wasting ammunition." "Negative, sir. Watch what happens next." The German fighters regrouped, but now they approached cautiously, no longer the aggressive diving attack, but hesitant, probing. The initiative had shifted. Donovan tracked the new lead fighter, waited until 1,500 yards, then opened fire again. Short, controlled bursts, not aiming to hit, but to intimidate. It worked. The formation broke once more. But one BF-109, the left wingman, an experienced veteran, held course. Donovan recognized the type. Not easily intimidated, requiring a different tactic. He let the fighter close in. At 1,400 yards, 1,300, 1,200, the range where most gunners would open sustained fire, Donovan held his position. He let the German get closer. 1,100 yards. 1,000. Now the fighter filled his sights. Donovan fired. Not a burst, but a sustained barrage. 200 rounds in 3 seconds. The concentration of fire was overwhelming. The BF-109 tried to break away, but flew directly into the stream of tracers. Its engine exploded and the aircraft disintegrated, pieces tumbling toward the earth. "Good kill," the radio operator called out. "Donovan just splashed one." But Donovan wasn't celebrating. He was already tracking the next target. The remaining 11 fighters had regrouped. Now they knew the tail position was dangerous. They'd adjust their tactics, coming from different angles to split his attention. A standard counter to aggressive defense. Donovan had anticipated this. When the fighters split into 2 groups, 6 attacking from 6 o'clock, 5 from 7 o'clock, he didn't try to engage both. He focused entirely on the 6 o'clock group, ignoring the 7 o'clock threat. "Waist gunners, you've got 7 o'clock," Donovan called. "I'm holding 6. Waist gunners, Sergeants Tommy Price and Carl Johnson, opened fire on the 7 o'clock group as Donovan concentrated on his sector. 6 fighters dove toward them. He picked the lead aircraft, fired and hit. The fighter exploded. The remaining 5 broke formation briefly. Donovan immediately shifted to the new lead, fired again, and scored another hit. Another explosion. In 30 seconds, 3 BF-109s fell from the sky. The remaining 9 fighters broke off completely, not retreating to reposition, but full retreat, fleeing from a single tailgun position. The formation flew on as Donovan reloaded and checked his ammunition. 1,200 rounds expended, 800 remaining, enough for one more sustained engagement or 2 brief ones. The question was whether the Germans would return. They did 15 minutes later. This time, 18 fighters, a full staffel. They'd seen what happened to the first group and came prepared, attacking from multiple vectors simultaneously. 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock. Overwhelming firepower from every stern quarter. The standard response, defensive fire, trying to cover all angles, dividing attention, surviving on evasion and luck. Donovan chose all-out aggression. He ignored the 4 and 5 o'clock attackers, leaving them to the waist and ball gunners, and focused everything on the 6 o'clock direct stern attack. 6 BF-109s diving straight at Hell's Fury's tail. Donovan didn't flinch or try to evade. He locked his guns on the lead fighter and opened fire at 1,200 yards. Maximum effective range for his twin .5s. The closing speed between the bomber and the fighter was 400 knots, giving him exactly 7 seconds before the German reached firing position. Donovan used every one of them, walking tracers directly into the lead BF-109's flight path. The fighter couldn't evade without breaking its attack formation. The pilot held course, a fatal mistake. At 800 yards, Donovan's rounds found metal. The fighter's canopy shattered, and the aircraft rolled inverted and plummeted. 5 remained, now 400 yards from Hell's Fury. 3 seconds to impact. Donovan shifted to the next fighter, no time for precise tracking, just pure instinct. He fired where the target would be in 2 seconds, not where it was, where physics dictated it had to go. The second BF-109 flew directly into the stream of bullets. Catastrophic damage to the engine cowling sent it exploding in a ball of orange flame, debris scattering across the sky. The 3 remaining fighters broke formation immediately, abandoning any attempt at another pass, executing full defensive maneuvers to flee a single gun position. "Jesus Christ," Whitmore's voice crackled over the intercom. Donovan just splashed 2 more in 3 seconds. But Donovan wasn't celebrating. He was reloading his last ammunition belt. 400 rounds remaining, and the mission was only half over. They still had to reach the target, drop their bombs, and fly home through the same fighter-infested airspace. The formation continued toward Augsburg as German fighters regrouped at a distance, 12 aircraft remaining from the original 18. They learned their lesson. Direct stern attacks cost too much. They needed a new tactic. What came next surprised everyone. The German fighters didn't attack. They shadowed the bomber formation, staying just outside gun range, waiting. Whitmore recognized the pattern immediately. They're calling in reinforcements. We're about to get hit by everything they've got. He was right. 10 minutes later, radar picked up new contacts. 36 fighters, a full gruppa, 3 Staffeln of BF-109s and FW-190s. Combined with the 12 already shadowing them, Hell's Fury faced 48 enemy fighters against a single B-17's defensive armament. Standard procedure in this situation: radio for fighter escort, tighten formation with nearby bombers, maximize overlapping defensive fire, and survive through coordination. But Hell's Fury had drifted from formation during the earlier attacks. The nearest friendly bomber was 3 miles away. No P-51 escorts were in range. They were alone. Donovan checked his ammunition. 380 rounds against 48 fighters. The math didn't add up, unless he changed the equation. "Captain," Donovan called over the intercom, "permission to try something." "What?" Whitmore asked. "Attack." Silence. Then Whitmore's voice, carefully controlled, "Explain." Those fighters are forming up for a coordinated assault, Donovan said. Give them 2 minutes, and they'll hit us from every angle at once. We can't defend against that, but we can disrupt it. If I engage while they're still organizing, I can force them to scatter before they're ready. You'll be out of ammunition in 30 seconds, Whitmore warned. Then I better make every round count. Donovan pressed. Sir, defensive tactics don't work when you're outnumbered 20-1. Our only chance is aggressive action while they're still vulnerable. Whitmore considered for 3 seconds, then made his decision. Do it. If you get us killed, I'm writing your family a very angry letter. Donovan didn't waste time responding. The German formation was 2,000 yards out, still organizing. Lead elements establishing attack vectors, trailing elements moving into support positions. Perfect vulnerability. Donovan opened fire, not short, controlled bursts, not suppressive fire, but a maximum sustained barrage. He poured 200 rounds into the center of the formation in 8 seconds, not targeting specific aircraft, but the space where coordination happened, where fighters maintained formation discipline. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. Tracers cut through the formation's core. One Bf-109 caught fire and spiraled downward. 2 others collided while trying to evade. The entire formation disintegrated into chaos. 48 fighters scattering in every direction. No coordination, no attack plan. Just individual aircraft fighting to survive. Holy! Whitmore didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Everyone saw it. One tail gunner with a seemingly suicidal attack had just broken up the largest fighter assault any of them had ever witnessed. But Donovan knew the truth. He'd bought them time. Maybe 2 minutes, maybe less. The Germans would regroup, angrier now, more aggressive. The next attack would be fast and furious, and he had 180 rounds left. The German fighters regrouped faster than expected. 90 seconds. This time, they abandoned coordinated tactics entirely. They swarmed. 12 fighters diving from 6 o'clock simultaneously. No formation, no strategy, just overwhelming force. Donovan picked his targets carefully. Not the closest or most aggressive, but the middle of the swarm, the psychological center where the pack's courage originated. He fired 30-round bursts at 3 consecutive aircraft. All 3 took hits. 1 exploded, 2 broke off, trailing smoke. The remaining 9 continued their attack run, now within 400 yards. Cannon fire lit up the sky, 20mm rounds streaking past Hell's Fury's tail section. Some connected. Metal shrieked. The aircraft shuddered. But Donovan kept firing, methodical, precise. No fear, no hesitation. Another Bf-109 fell, then another. 5 remained, 200 yards away. Point-blank range. Donovan could see the pilots' faces. Young men, determined, professional. He shot them anyway. 2 more fighters exploded. 3 left, 100 yards out. The survivors broke off. Too close, the risk of collision now outweighing the reward of the kill. Donovan tracked one last fighter, squeezed the trigger. Nothing. The guns were dry. He'd expended all 180 rounds in 45 seconds, destroying 6 fighters in that engagement alone. Now he was defenseless. "I'm out," Donovan called over the intercom. "Dry on all guns." "Copy," Whitmore responded. "Damage report. Anyone hit?" The crew checked in. The ball turret had minor damage. The rudder showed stress fractures, but everyone was alive, and all systems were functional. Hell's Fury could still fly, still fight, just without her tail guns. The German fighters knew it. They regrouped one final time. 27 aircraft remaining from the original 48. They lost 21 fighters to a single bomber, a single gun position, a catastrophic, unsustainable loss rate. But they had one advantage now. The tail position was neutralized. They attacked from directly astern, 6 o'clock low. The one vector Donovan's empty guns couldn't cover. A standard tactic when the enemy is defenseless. They came in tight formation, slow, methodical, no wasted shots. This was execution. Donovan watched them approach. 400 yards, 300, 200. He had no ammunition, no way to defend. But he had one weapon left, psychology. He traversed his guns to track the lead fighter, following it precisely, maintaining perfect targeting discipline, as if his weapons were loaded, as if he could fire at any moment. The lead German pilot saw the twin .50 locked on him, the barrels aligned perfectly with his cockpit. He broke formation, executing an immediate hard right turn. Pure instinct overriding logic. The guns might be empty, but the threat response was hardwired. When someone aims at you, you evade. The rest of the formation followed their leader, breaking off the attack not because Donovan could shoot them, but because they believed he could. The psychological impact of his previous kills created a phantom threat. Empty guns as effective as loaded ones, powered by reputation alone. "They're breaking off," the ball turret gunner's voice cracked with relief. "They're actually breaking off." And they were. The German formation scattered, no attempt to regroup. They'd lost 21 aircraft to this single bomber. The cost was too high. They disengaged completely, flying back to their bases, leaving Hell's Fury alone in hostile airspace with empty tail guns. The bomber formation continued to Augsburg, dropped its bombs, destroyed the aircraft factory, and flew home through 3 more fighter contacts, none of which engaged Hell's Fury. Word had spread through German radio communications. One B-17 with an insane tail gunner had single-handedly destroyed 21 fighters. The warning was clear: avoid that aircraft. Too dangerous. Too costly. Hell's Fury landed at Framlingham at 16:47 hours, 9 hours after takeoff. Donovan climbed out of his tail position, hands steady, no shakes, no visible stress. Ground crews swarmed the aircraft, counting the damage. 47 bullet holes, 13 cannon strikes, a destroyed hydraulic line, a cracked rudder. But it had flown. It had survived. Crew Chief Murphy examined the tailgun position, checked the ammunition boxes. All empty, every round expended. He found Donovan sitting on the tarmac smoking a cigarette. "You used everything," Murphy said. 2,000 rounds. You fired every bullet we loaded." "Had to," Donovan replied. "Didn't have enough to waste any." "How many did he get?" Whitmore asked. Murphy consulted his notes. Counts from the crew, radio intercepts from German communications, visual confirmations from escort fighters who'd finally caught up near the target. 12 confirmed kills, Murphy said. 4 probables, 3 damaged. Whitmore looked at Donovan. "You destroyed 12 fighters in one mission." 19 if you count probables and damaged, Murphy added, in 4 minutes of sustained combat. The news spread through the bomber group by sunset. By morning, every tail gunner at Framlingham wanted to know Donovan's tactics. By afternoon, pilots from other groups were requesting briefings. By evening, 8th Air Force Headquarters had sent representatives to interview him. Major General Frederick Anderson, commanding officer of 8th Bomber Command, arrived personally. He found Donovan in the enlisted men's barracks cleaning his guns. Standard maintenance, nothing special. Anderson introduced himself, and Donovan stood at attention. "At ease, Sergeant," Anderson said. "I'm here to understand what you did yesterday." Donovan explained his philosophy: aggressive fire, psychological intimidation, attacking during the enemy's formation phase, exploiting vulnerability before coordination solidified. Anderson listened without interruption. When Donovan finished, the general asked one question: "Can you teach this to the right men?" "Not everyone's got the temperament," Donovan said. "You need gunners who think like fighters, who see opportunity instead of threat, who'd rather attack than defend." "Find them," Anderson ordered. "I'm authorizing a special training program. You'll develop the curriculum, select candidates, and transform tail gunner tactics across the entire 8th Air Force. Effective immediately, you're reassigned to training command." Donovan hesitated. "Sir, I prefer to stay with my crew." "Your crew doesn't need you anymore," Anderson said bluntly. "They're alive because of what you did. Other crews are dying because their gunners don't know what you know. Which is more important, 9 men or 9,000? The answer was obvious. Donovan accepted the assignment. Over the next month, he developed what became known as the Donovan Doctrine: aggressive tail gunnery. Its core principles were simple yet revolutionary. 1. Seize the initiative. Don't wait for fighters to attack. Engage during their formation phase, forcing them to respond to you. 2. Psychological warfare. Your first burst doesn't need to destroy. It needs to intimidate, making them cautious and hesitant. 3. Focus fire. When outnumbered, don't divide attention. Concentrate on the most dangerous sector, trusting other gunners to handle peripheral threats. 4. Ammunition economy through aggression. 30 rounds forcing 12 fighters to scatter is more efficient than 300 rounds engaging scattered targets. Prevention costs less than reaction. 5. Accept risk. Aggressive tactics increase individual exposure, but decrease mission losses. Collective survival matters more than individual safety. The Donovan Doctrine faced immediate resistance. Traditional gunners called it reckless. Command officers worried about ammunition waste. Conservative instructors labeled it suicidal. But the statistics didn't lie. In March 1944, before Donovan's tactics spread, 8th Air Force tail gunner casualty rates averaged 38%. By June 1944, after widespread adoption, the rate dropped to 23%, a 15% reduction with the same missions and enemy. Fighter engagement statistics told the real story. In March 1944, German fighters completed 52% of planned attack runs against bomber formations. By June, that rate dropped to 27%. Aggressive tail gun fire disrupted coordination so effectively that more than half of all planned attacks aborted before reaching firing position. The psychological impact extended beyond individual missions. German pilots began avoiding bombers known to employ aggressive gunners. Radio intercepts captured squadron leaders, warning pilots away from specific American formations. The mere reputation of aggressive defense created a tactical advantage. Between March and August 1944, Donovan trained 300 tail gunners, each receiving 2 weeks of intensive instruction, live fire exercises, simulated fighter attacks, psychological conditioning. The program emphasized mental preparation as much as technical skill. Donovan's favorite saying became doctrine: fear happens when you react. Confidence happens when you act first. Not every candidate succeeded. Roughly 30% washed out, unable to overcome defensive instincts or embrace the required aggression. But those who did became legends. By war's end, Donovan's graduates accounted for 43% of all tail gunner kills in the European theater. They adapted and innovated, evolving the doctrine beyond its creator. Sergeant Thomas Bailey destroyed 16 fighters in his first 4 missions. Sergeant Robert Chen survived 27 missions without serious damage to his gun position. The doctrine didn't just increase kills, it increased survival through deterrence. German pilots learned to recognize aggressive gunners by their telltale signs: early fire at extreme range, sustained barrages, tracers targeting formation centers. When they saw these indicators, they broke off immediately. The cost of engagement outweighed the reward. By summer 1944, Luftwaffe training manuals included sections on American aggressive gunner tactics with a simple recommended counter: avoid, find easier targets. Donovan's personal combat career ended with the March 6th mission. He never flew another combat sortie, spending the rest of the war training others. But his influence far exceeded his 12 confirmed kills. Conservative estimates credit the Donovan Doctrine with saving 300 American bombers and 3,000 aircrew. After the war, his principles of aggressive defense were adopted into aerial combat doctrine by nations worldwide. The Soviet Union, Britain, even post-war Germany, which acknowledged its effectiveness. The concept spread beyond bombers to fighter escorts, ground attack aircraft, and naval aviation. Wherever defensive positions existed, Donovan's principles applied. Donovan himself returned to Boston, worked in construction, and never spoke about the war. When journalists tracked him down in the 1960s, he declined interviews. "I did what needed doing. So did 300 other gunners. They're the real story." But his trainees disagreed. In a 1972 interview, Thomas Bailey said, "Before him, we thought survival meant hiding, making ourselves small targets, conserving resources. Mike taught us survival means making the enemy scared to attack you. Sounds simple, changes everything." 8th Air Force analysis in 1945 confirmed Bailey's words. Between March and May 1944, average bomber losses were 14 per 1,000 sorties. Between June and August, that dropped to 8 per 1,000, a 43% reduction with the same targets and defenses. Captured German records echoed this. Luftwaffe after-action reports from summer 1944 repeatedly noted American gunner aggression, with one June 1944 report stating, American tail gunners have adopted new tactics. Effect is psychological disruption of attack coordination. Recommendation, avoid direct stern approaches. By August 1944, German fighter effectiveness against American bombers had declined by 63% compared to January. 28% of that decline attributed specifically to aggressive gunner tactics. Donovan never knew these numbers, never saw the German analysis, never learned the full extent of his influence. He died in 1998 at the age of 76. His Boston Globe obituary mentioned his Distinguished Service Cross, 16 years in construction, his wife Margaret, and 3 children. One paragraph noted his war service as an 8th Air Force tail gunner who developed new tactics, but omitted the 12 kills in 4 minutes, the 300 gunners trained, the 3,000 lives saved, the way a South Boston street fighter changed aerial combat forever. His funeral drew 17 people, mostly family, 2 war buddies. No military honor guard, no 21-gun salute, just a quiet service at St. Augustine Cemetery. The priest didn't know about March 6, 1944, or the Donovan Doctrine, or that he was burying a man who'd altered the course of aerial warfare. But the other tail gunners knew. The night before, they'd gathered informally at a South Boston bar, raising glasses, telling stories, remembering the man who'd taught them to shoot first and intimidate the bastards who wanted them dead. Bailey, 74 by then, gave the toast. Mike Donovan never thought he was special, just a guy doing his job. But his job saved 3,000 of us. Every bomber that made it home because German fighters broke off. Every gunner who survived his tour because he learned to be aggressive. Every mission that succeeded because the enemy was too scared to engage. That's Mike's legacy. Not 12 kills, but 12,000 lives. The Donovan Doctrine remains standard in modern aerial combat training. Fighter pilots learn aggressive engagement principles. Gunners on transport aircraft study psychological intimidation. Even modern missile defense systems incorporate early engagement to disrupt enemy coordination. March 6, 1944, lasted 4 minutes. 1 tail gunner, 12 enemy fighters. The moment defense became offense, reaction became action, and a South Boston street fighter proved survival doesn't come from hiding. It comes from making your enemy too scared to fight. Michael Donovan fired 2,000 rounds, destroyed 12 aircraft, saved 3,000 lives, and changed warfare forever. Not because he was special, but because he refused to wait for death to find him. He went hunting first. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Your support helps us preserve these histories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We honor the courage of these men by remembering their names. Thank you for keeping their stories alive.